Oh, there you are.
There you
You're
are.
speaking.
Hello.
Oh, yay. Okay, so I
Hi.
can hang up my phone now?
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, thank you.
You had a nice week.
Yes and no. I had a lovely week, except a dear friend of mine died unexpectedly, and that's been really difficult. She was one of my dearest friends, and I saw her on Friday, and um, on Tuesday, her next door neighbor went over there, and she was laying dead in the backyard and face down. So they don't know what happened. They want to do an autopsy. They don't know if she had a heart attack or what. But anyway, other than that,
Yeah,
it's part of life. But as you know, it's never easy.
I'm very sorry to hear your news.
Thank you.
Yeah, we never know, do we? What's going to happen around the corner? It's part of the.
Every day is a gift.
Yeah, I think that's all we can do is kind of sort of keep going in the way that they want us to do, and all
Mhm.
that sort of thing, really. So what I'm going to do, Beverly, is I have a copy of the episode in front of me. I'm just going to play in without the sound, just sort of
Okay.
guide our conversation a little bit. So
Oh, okay.
it may be that people watching along will want to do the same, or they might just want to just listen and watch as we chat.
Okay.
So for those that want to watch the episode, we go along. If you just want to pause in the opening shot, which is just before the beam down onto the planet's surface. So if you want to get that ready, and I'll give you a few seconds to do that, and then we'll begin.
Okay.
Uh, were you able to rewatch the episode prior to today, or
No, I,
no? No.
when my friend died, I didn't even come near my computer
I just probably meant when we uh
when you sent it a while ago.
at any point, because obviously this has been a long time in the making, hasn't it? And for various reasons. So, but I think it's quite a good episode
Thank you.
to look at, and it's a fan favorite as well. So I think it'll be
Is
a
it
good one
really?
to.
I've been
Yeah.
told that, and I always wondered if people were just telling me that to be nice or if that's true.
Yeah, very much. One of the people on today is their favorite episode, and I take it you've seen it a few times over the years at
Over the
various reasons,
years,
and
yeah. And I think
yeah.
I told you I was in Italy last year for a Star Trek event, and it was so heartwarming to see how many people love Star Trek in Italy. It was amazing.
Oh yeah, we'll certainly come on to that side of things as we go along. So for those that are ready to just make sure we have no anybody having technical issues, no, I think we're okay. So do a countdown from five, then we'll press play together. So five, four, three, two, one, and play. First question I had, Beverly, of course, it opens up on a nice sort of studio shot and a nice planet scene. Of course, you have the beam down effect. So I just wondered whether that was a pretty straightforward thing to sort of do the freeze and dissolve on the planet.
Yeah, because that was, of course, inserted later. When we were actually on the set, we didn't see what was happening with that little effect that they did.
Yeah. And it's of course it's become very iconic. It's not really changed too much in 60 years, really. That sort of d dissolve. Were you impressed with the planet set? Did it? Because obviously you've got a very nice background of
Yes,
skyscape.
yes, it was very impressive, for its time. I mean, next year will be the 60-year anniversary, which is hard to believe, isn't it? 60 years, and here it is still in people's hearts and homes. In fact, I just got a residual um, a couple of days ago for Star Trek. They're still showing it. So, of course, the residual was only $12, but
Yeah.
it's so funny because after 60 years, it keeps diminishing until there's nothing left. So, but it was fun to get that.
I've talked to a few actors, and sometimes they get like 1 cent checks or one
I
penny
have
even.
one for one penny. It was for a different show. It was for Murder She Wrote. And it was so comical to me because I thought, well, what are you supposed to do with a check for one penny? So anyway, I framed it. It's on my wall.
I've heard that actors tend to do that with them. Yeah, yeah. So there's two very interesting actors in the opening scene, Felix Locker and Laura Wood playing the Johnson, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. Of course, they are the first victims of some of the first victims of this phenomenon. Do you remember either of the actors?
Yeah, I didn't, we didn't have a lot of time to interact with them. They brought them on the set and we did the scene, but we all got, of course, to meet them. And that was fun because, supposedly what they say that he was 27 or something.
Mm.
And yeah, it was such a fun set. And, all my memories of working, I started as a child and did most of my work as a child. So when I got the role, um, I was thrilled, but it was not really that popular yet because it was the second season. And as all the fans know, it was the fans that brought it back when it was canceled. So.
So how did you get cast on the show? How did it come about?
Well, I had an agent and I got the call, of course, to go. Now, back then, they didn't really call them auditions. Your agent would call and say, I have an interview for you. So they said it was for a show called Star Trek, which I wasn't really familiar with. But, as an actress, you always hope that you get whatever role you're going out for. And so when I went there, they gave me what's called the sides, which is just like one scene. Um, from the script. They don't give you the whole script. And they let you sit in the lobby for a few minutes to go over it and familiarize yourself with it. And then you're called back into the room and you read. But before I even read for the role, they asked me if I was claustrophobic. And at the time, I didn't say anything to them, of course, but I thought to myself, what an odd question, because I'm here reading for a role and they asked me if I was claustrophobic. Well, the reason they asked me that is because in the scene where I come in and I've aged and I die, at least I died in Captain Kirk's arms, um, the makeup had to be such that I had to breathe through a straw. They put a plaster cast on my face, and I had to breathe through a straw till it dried. And then after the plaster cast was made, they took that off, and then they made a rubber mask out of that. So it was quite tedious, and so the whole thing actually took like 4.5 hours because they had to put the wig on and the rubber mask over my face and put the makeup over the rubber mask and all that. So, but at the time, they didn't tell me why. They just asked me if I was claustrophobic. And I said no, that I wasn't. And so they said, okay, great. And then they had me read for the role. And there were several other girls in the lobby waiting to go in and read as well. So of course, when I got done, they don't tell you right then and there that you've got the part. You just kind of go home and hope the phone's going to ring. So when I got the call that I had gotten the role, I was really grateful. And as I said, I wasn't all that familiar with the show, so I didn't really have any idea at the time that, I mean, 60 years later, it's such a beloved show and people know. I mean, it's all over the world, and I get fan mail. And, I just had a small role. I only did the one episode, and yet the Star Trek fans are so loyal and so wonderful. And they know every episode, they know every character, they know your dialogue. And it's heartwarming. And I've done a few Star Trek conventions, and I get such a kick out of the Trekkies and the Trekkers that come up to my table and without even saying hello or anything first, they'll just come up and say, well, that's a stupid place to hang a mirror. And, that was one of my lines. And I think, how did they know that? And, and I'll say, oh, did you ever see that episode? And invariably they'll say only about 100 times or, only 50 times or whatever. And it's just so cute. I just think it's so wonderful that they're so loyal. And many times we've done some conventions outdoors and they'll bring their dogs and the dogs will be dressed up in uniforms and their babies will be dressed up, and it's just so It's just wonderful. And I feel very blessed to have been a part of it, of Star Trek, because at the time I had no idea that all these years later it would be so loved.
Is that conventions just in the States, or have you been to other parts of?
Uh, well, I went to Italy, is the
Oh,
only
yeah,
place
yeah,
outside of
okay,
the
yeah.
States. I understand it's big in England. I've never been to England. That would be fun to do a convention there. And they do them apparently all over the world, but so far I've only been to Italy, but I would love to come to the UK. And it's so touching to me when people come up and they remember me because, as I said, I just did the one episode and I died and I wasn't even wearing a red shirt. But anyway, it was a fun role and I love being a part of
Yeah, the red shirt joke, of course, is a quite a recurring one, is it, for Star Trek community. So you've become very. It sounds like you're very au fait with Star Trek now
it.
that you've seen a lot of the other shows, I'm guessing, and maybe some of the films and stuff.
Yeah, well, I, I I've been very blessed because I started quite young, and I did quite a few movies and TV shows, and I've done horror conventions because I did a movie called Spider Baby that's pretty popular right now. It's become a cult classic with Lon Chaney, and then I've done Western conventions, and I did one for the Superman convention, and but wherever I go, people always talk about Star Trek, and it's heartwarming.
Hmm. So having been cast in the role, would you have tried to watch an episode or two prior to starting, or because of course if it wasn't being shown weekly, you couldn't catch it up in the way that the week could. So did you manage to see anything prior to
I
starting
got to
working?
see an episode, but I didn't see several of them, and
Hmm.
so I didn't really know for sure what I was getting myself into, and it was so much fun on the set, and of course most Trekkies know that I'm on the blooper reel as well, which as an actress you always try to be professional and know your dialogue and show up on time and do all that. But it was a very fun set and very loose and a lot of laughter and fun. And so when I came in and I forgot my next line and and said I had no idea I was going to end up on the blooper reel, but that was fun. And I guess it's out there because several fans that have come to these conventions will mention that to me. But it was all in fun. So
Hmm. We mentioned the makeup earlier, but the first scene when you go to Dr. McCoy and you start to sort of have the symptoms, it is sort of a noticeable but still
it was very subtle. Like
subtle,
they did,
yes. Yeah.
like my makeup, they tried to make like my eyes were kind of puffy and getting like darker circles underneath. I don't know if the camera really picked all that up, but when I come in and say something, my hearing is going and
Yeah.
it never happened before, they wanted it to just kind of be the beginning of not feeling well. So, but it's such a fond memory for me, and I'm so happy to do this with you, Philip, and the fact that you reached out to me to be part of your show. I'm very honored, so thank you for having me.
Oh, well, the pleasure's mine. Thank you for joining
Sure.
me. The makeup artist that did all this lovely work in the episode is a gentleman called Fred Phillip, and he worked on all three seasons of the show. Pat Westmore did the hair. Do you remember much about them? Because you might have had more to do with them than perhaps some other
Yeah,
stars.
well, I had to do that each day, and then, they've come a long way with makeup and the things that they can do in today's world. Back there, then they actually used spirit gum to put the rubber mask on my face. So at the end of the day, just taking off the makeup, that was another 2 hour process because they had to just slowly peel it off. So, and it hurt. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but it didn't feel good because they had to slowly peel it off and my skin would pull out. And of course, now they have new ways to do the effects. And of course, now with AI, they can do everything. So it's a different world now that we live in. But back then, so it was just fun to be in the makeup chair. And but I had to breathe through a straw to so I could breathe with that big heavy plaster cast, and I couldn't really move because it had to just settle on my face so that when they took it off, they could then make the rubber mask to put over that so that it would fit correctly on my face. So it was quite the procedure, but it was worth it. I mean, I would do it again in a second. It was just to be a part of such an iconic show. I feel very grateful.
Was it just the one day you had to wear the full mask, or was it? Uh,
This was like so many years ago. I'm trying to remember. I know we had to do like a makeup test to see how it would look. So that was one day. So it was actually 2 days that I had to actually be in the full makeup. And then taking it off, as I said, another 2 hours. But it was fun. It was a fun set, and the cast, they were all so warm and welcoming, and um, it was just a joy to be a part of it.
do you happen to remember the director, Joseph Penvey?
Yes, he was wonderful. And I, of course, was grateful to him because the director has quite a big say as to who's going to get picked. I mean, they bring you in with the casting director and the producer and the director, and it's kind of, I guess, a joint effort. They all have to agree on who's going to be chosen for the role. So I was always grateful to him that he chose me and that the casting director did. And um, it was just a wonderful time in my life. And I never in a million years would have thought at the time that all these years later that I would be doing something like this with you and talking about that role. It was not a big role, but it was a fun role, and people seem to remember Lieutenant Galway, which I'm always very flattered.
I think it's a very very well written role, and it's obviously a very tragic role as well, and that I think is probably partly why it lingers in the fans' memories. Are you able to bring much to when you guest on a show like this? Are you able to make suggestions in terms of dialogue or hairstyle? How
Not,
much, or is it kind of
not really.
fit into them?
I, I mean, there are some actors that do that, I suppose, but I just kind of know everybody has a job to do, and that's the director's job to tell you what to do. I mean, you have to have some idea of how you're going to play the role, of course, and you do like a run through and a rehearsal, and then the director might tweak it or say, try it this way or whatever, or sometimes they just let you run with it and do it in your own interpretation. So, but I remember because I was supposed to be so old that um, the prior week that I went down to where there were like some elderly people just to kind of watch them and see how they moved and slumped over and things like that. So I did that just kind of as a little bit of homework. But as far as the dialogue and everything, um, I just, I've always just liked to be directed by the director to tell me what, because they usually have a vision. Sometimes the writer will also be on the set, and they typically have a vision of how they want the role to be played. So I've always loved taking direction.
I don't know if it is different in the States, but I know in the UK around about these, the 60s and 70s, it was far less common for writers to be on set than it is now. So, but I don't know what would happen perhaps on a show like Star Trek, but a lot of the UK writers would sort of hand something in and then they'd see it broadcast. That was kind of there wasn't kind of that kind of um openness in a way that perhaps there is now really. Um,
Hmm.
did you get a rehearsal period for this show? Was it sort of done in because of course this is done on film. A lot of shows in the UK were done on videotape, which obviously meant you had to do it pretty much as
Things have
live.
changed a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
back then, no, we didn't really have much time because they have to do an episode every week, and uh, they have to get it all done. So when you get there, they have you do a run through, and run through the scene, and then the director will tweak it or tell you, to do it this way or that way or whatever. Or sometimes they don't tell you anything. They just say, "Okay, let's go," and then you do it. But they do what's called a master, which is the camera is sort of toward the back, and then they see the whole scene, and then they'll do like the two shot, and then they'll do the close up, and then they do the POV, the point of view of the actor. So it's quite time consuming when you do one little scene that's on for like 2 minutes, and it can take several hours because they're, the lighting and the sound and everything has to be just right. And then by the time they do the master, the two shot, the point of view shot, the close up, and all that, it can be quite time consuming.
So of course, you say you were a child actor. How did that come about? Was it something that your mum and dad actually wanted you to be, or was it kind of something that just
Well, actually, I
came
started
about?
modeling children's clothes first when I was 4 years old. And my older sister was an acrobat, and she used to go around to the various veterans hospitals and do her little act that she would do. She was an acrobat, and I would sort of tag along. And so my mother got me an agent, and I went on countless interviews, auditions, and I never got anything because I didn't have any experience. I had modeled clothes, that was all, at 4 years old. So by the time I was 6, I had been on countless auditions and I never got anything. And this one time I was in Long Beach, California, in the States, and Jock Mahoney was there. He was their special guest, and he was this handsome, tall cowboy. And people, I don't know about in England, but in the States, he was on a TV show called The Range Rider, and he did several things, and he was under contract to the studio, Columbia Studios. So I met him, and I was mesmerized by this tall, handsome cowboy. And a few months later, my agent sent me on another audition to read for a role in a movie. And when I got there, as fate or luck or whatever happened, Jock Mahoney walked through the lobby and he saw me there with my mother and he remembered me. And he asked my mother why I was there. And she told him that I was reading for a role in a movie called The Killer That Stalked New York. So he said, I'll be right back. Well, we found out later that, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Um, I'm sorry about that. I thought I turned off my phone. I don't
No
do a
worries.
lot of Zoom, so
That's
um,
okay.
so anyway, uh, we found out later that he had gone into the producer and he said, "Oh, this kid is great. She's done this, she's done that." I hadn't done a thing, really. So basically, as the story goes, he lied. They believed him, and I got the part. And it was a speaking role. So after that, I finally had a credit to my name. So when I went on the next audition, it was for a movie with Bing Crosby and Jane Wyman called Here Comes the Groom. And so the fact that I had experience now, it was easier to get the role. And that's how it kind of segued into that. So
And that was a Frank Capra film, wasn't it? That
it
one.
was, yeah, it's strange because it had a stellar cast. It had Bing Crosby, Jane Wyman, Fran Chatone, Alexis Smith. They had cameos with Louis Armstrong and Dorothy Lamour and Phil Harris and Frank Fontaine and Cass Daly. And the wardrobe lady was Edith Head, who had won many Oscars. The movie that year won the Oscar for the best song, which was written by Hoagie Carmichael and Johnny Mercer. It was called In the Cool, Cool, Cool of the Evening. And yet it was never a very popular film. It was strange that Frank Capra was the director and then all those things to go along with it, and yet very few people have even heard of it. I don't know why. It was not a well-known movie. It was called Here Comes the Groom, and I mean, it's on, of course, it's on DVD now, but it's not a pop. Most people have never heard of it, but it was a cute film. And I played a French war orphan that gets adopted by Bing Crosby. And so, and then after that, I did The Juggler with Kirk Douglas, and then Superman and the Mole Men with George Reeves, and Shane with Alan Ladd, and uh, The Greatest Show on Earth that was directed by Cecil B. DeMille. And I was so young, I didn't appreciate it. I didn't know who Cecil B. DeMille was. I didn't know I was being directed by George Stevens or Frank Capra. I was too young to appreciate any of that. To me, they were just nice people that I was working with. So it was not until I became older that I look back on my career and I thought how blessed I was and how fortunate to have worked with so many famous people and be directed by icons. And so I feel very, very grateful.
And do you have many memories going back from that time, or maybe memories that have been jogged by, say, your parents being there, or other people sort of telling you kind of what it was, what was like when you kind of
Yeah,
people.
well, as a minor, you have to have either a parent or a guardian on the set with you, and you have to have 3 hours of schooling a day. So what they do is they send a board certified school teacher from the Los Angeles Board of Education, and they're called welfare workers. And the reason they're called welfare workers at the time, rather than just school teachers, is because they're there not only to teach you the academics. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
No problem.
Um, I, I'm so sorry. I thought I turned
That's
my
that's
phone.
okay.
I'm so sorry. I'm embarrassed. You see, I
No,
don't do these Zooms very often. Um, anyway, so what was I saying? So you have to have schooling, and you have to have 3 hours on the set a day, and they're there to look out for the miners' welfare, basically, that you don't do any overtime. You don't. You have to have an hour of lunch every day. You have to have breaks, and anyway, I'm sorry, somebody's leaving me a message on my. Uh, anyway, sorry about that. Where were we? I'm getting all frazzled. I'm so embarrassed,
that's
Philip, that my phones rang. They never ring. I did.
it's always a way, isn't it? The moment you're doing something, people start to call. So I mean that's
Oh,
schooling.
I'm sorry. It just went. I didn't hear you for a moment.
So I was going to say that do you have any peripheral memories of Bing Crosby or Frank Capra? Or they or no?
Yes, I do. As I said, I didn't really know that they were famous. I didn't, I was 6 or 7 years old, and I didn't even know what famous meant. I didn't know the word. But Bing Crosby was so wonderful to me. He gave me a beautiful doll for Christmas. And I have a couple of photos on my wall in my office in my house that he signed to me. And one of them says, to Beverly, hope to play in your next picture. It's really cute. And another one he wrote to my co star, Beverly. And it was just so adorable. And Jane Wyman was wonderful. Um, um, I just have so many fond memories. And as at the risk of being redundant, I didn't understand who they were. To me, they were just nice people that I got to work with. And it was just always a fun set for me. And I had so many fond memories. And then, of course, when I did Old Yeller, that was what most people remember me from. And a lot of people don't do the connection. Like when I do these Star Trek um, shows, they'll remember me from Star Trek, and then they'll go, you were the little girl in Old Yeller, and they don't put the connection because I was an adult by the time I did Star Trek. But Old Yeller, I was like 12 or 13. So people don't put the connection that it was the same person.
Hmm. Do you think it was helpful in a way that you didn't perhaps know who some of these names were, so you didn't there was no possibility you could get stage fright or kind of starstruck?
Maybe.
Maybe not. But
Speaking of that, I did a live TV show with Jack Benny. I don't know if in England, if people knew of Jack Benny. Are you familiar? He was a comedian, quite
it then
famous in the
rings a
States.
bell.
Yeah, he was quite popular and famous in the States. And um, this was back in the days of live TV. They do live shows now, but they have the capability of like a tape delay if somebody makes a mistake or whatever. They have that little time frame. But back in the day, whatever happened, right or wrong, it went on the air. There was no do-overs. You couldn't go back. And so it was a comedy bit where they had me planted in the audience. I was with my sitting in the audience with my mother, and the rest of the audience, they had us walk in with them, so the audience were not privy to knowing that I was a setup. And so, in fact, it's online. You just go to Jack and the little girl. And anyway, I come up out of the audience and ask for his autograph, and we do this little comedy bit. And afterward, because if you watch it, there's a few times where he was stuttering a few times. And he told me later, he said, he realized that we had rehearsed it, but never in front of an audience. And I was so young, he thought, you know, what if I got stage fright? Or what if I got up there and I forgot my lines? And he said, or worse, what if he forgot his lines and then that might throw me off? And so he was nervous about it because he said he didn't take all that into consideration at first about not rehearsing with a live audience. And but anyway, it all went off smoothly, and then um, I got to work with him several times after that on his radio shows and his TV shows, and we were on the Hollywood Palace, which is, I don't think that's in the UK, I'm not sure, but it was on TV in the States, and then we toured all over the country with a comedy act, and so um, I guess in answer to your question, maybe it was good that I didn't really know who they were. I don't know. But my parents were wonderful. They were very supportive, and they always, you know, taught me to live in gratitude. And they always said, as long as I do my homework and I do my chores and I'm having a good time and enjoying myself, I could continue acting. But if I ever got, in their words, too big for my britches or acted like I'm better than somebody else or started acting, you know, not well, that I wouldn't be able to do it anymore. And I really loved what I did. And so I had a lovely childhood. And I have a book, I think you probably know about it. It's called Real Tears Take Two. And it's my autobiography. And I talk about growing up in Hollywood as a child actress and all of the ups and downs. And you know, there's rejection, and there's the not everything is good. You have bad times and sad times and happy times, but for the most part, I just look back on my childhood and feel quite fortunate, very blessed.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know whether, you know, kids being kids, whether at school some kids, did would sort of, not bully, but be a bit sort of not, sort of take anything like that negative from a
Yeah.
school point of view.
Well,
Sort
I
of.
went to public school, so in between, now when I would be doing a show, I would have school on the set with the school teacher, and we'd have to do 3 hours, and so we'd have to bring our assignments from our school, and so. But I had many childhood friends, some of which I still have to this day. I've lost a few. Sadly, as we get old, we lose people, you know, to horrible diseases, cancer and such, and or old age. I mean, I'm I'm in my 80s, so it's who knows? You know, every day is a gift. You just have to enjoy every day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think one of the reasons why perhaps this episode resonates is because I think particularly young people are afraid of getting old. I think
Yeah.
and it's sort of a taboo subject
Mhm.
still. We don't really talk about the aging process. We don't really talk about death particularly as society, and so maybe the actual subject of getting old is perhaps more scary than some other science fiction
Right.
themes, and maybe that's partly why it sort of grabs hold of the audience. And I
Thank
think
you.
the
Yeah, I
concept
hope
of
so.
that kind of young people getting rapidly old has reappeared in different films and other things over the years. Um, and I think that you mentioned the line earlier about when she looks at the mirror and says, "What's a stupid place to put a mirror?" And that's such a really good. It's so sad, and
It
it's
is, yeah.
it's
I mean, it was kind of funny that they would just happen to have a mirror there on the
but yeah.
spaceship, but
Yeah.
it was TV, and
Mm.
I'm always so, I don't know, I just get very full of gratitude when fans remember that episode or they remember my character, and a lot of people have told me that it's one of their favorite episodes, and that means so much.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it's one of the great ones. And of course, you say you get to die in William Shatner's arms, which I'm sure a
Yeah,
lot
so
of
it wasn't a total loss, right?
I'm sure a lot of people at the time, probably still now, would still quite like to do that. What
Yeah.
was William Shatner like?
Oh, he was great. I know he had sort of a reputation with the ladies, but I didn't experience any of that. And he was fun. And as he was progressively getting older, he would just start goofing off on the set, being silly and hunching over and just acting silly. He was a lot of fun. He really was. And um, the whole cast they were very warm and welcoming to me, which meant a lot to me because when you have a series and there's a group of people that are there every week and they kind of form this camaraderie like a family, and then when other people come on the show, you just you know you have to hope that you are greeted with open arms and that they're friendly, and they were terrific. They were really really wonderful.
I can imagine it being quite daunting to be, as you say, you're placed into an existing,
Right.
workplace, and
Yeah.
yeah, you're thinking, was this going to be good this time? Was it going to be not so good? And
Right.
but
Yeah, it was a fun set. And
mm,
of course, now, I mean, the sets are even much larger and better and bigger and all that. But considering it was 60 years ago, I think the sets were quite remarkable. And it was fun because I had never done any show like that. So it was really fun for me. I had a great time doing that episode.
it's fantastic. You have a lovely scene with DeForest Kelly when you first sort of discovering that this is happening to you. What was DeForest like as a person?
He was very nice, very soft spoken, very kind. Um, I loved working with him. I loved meeting him and just being there with him. So he was quiet. Um, Shatner was more outgoing and being funny on the set and things like that. And Leonard Nimoy was a gentleman. And of course, Jimmy and George and Walter and Nichelle, they were just lovely. I can't say enough about them. And I think how fortunate I was that I got to meet them and work with them and be welcomed by them. It meant a lot, and it still does.
I'm sure a lot of people watching this have met some of the main cast at various
Mhm.
conventions.
Yeah.
Apart from Glenn Nimoy and James Doohan, I've met all of them.
Oh,
Michelle Nichols
good.
very briefly because she's
Uh-huh.
massively popular, as she quite rightly should be. But all they're all lovely. Walter very nice, George very nice. So n- did you get the sense that they liked working with each other, that the camaraderie they had on the screen was kind of representative of that on set?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Um, when you're like a guest on the show and you're not there every day, you don't have as much time to form that um, camaraderie where you become like best friends or anything. But it was just a joy to work with them, and they were so kind to me and made me feel very welcome and very much a part of the show. So that was really nice.
I wanted to mention that the actress who played Nurse Chapel, Major Ballard. Did you remember her at all?
Yeah, again, it was a quick scene, so
Mm.
we didn't have the chance to, we didn't really hang out together or do anything like that, but she was lovely, of course.
Did Gene Roddenberry was on the set at all? Or did he not come?
Yes, and of course
He
he
was.
was in when I read for the role.
Right.
He was
Okay.
there.
Yeah.
So that was, but again, as I said at the time, I wasn't that familiar with the show, so I didn't know the, you know, just how wonderful and that he would be and how he was. And looking back, I mean, he was basically an icon. I mean, everybody that loves Star Trek knows Gene Roddenberry. It's just, um, yeah, it's nice to have memories.
Oh, and as you say, you don't quite realize how important these people are at the time, so you wouldn't ask the questions that you would now. But
Right,
it's just somebody else on a.
right.
It's a
Yeah,
job, isn't it? At the end of the day.
yes.
Um, would you have watched the episode when it aired? Did you like
It's
watching your
sort-
work?
um, it's kind of weird to watch yourself.
Mm.
I think we're all critical of ourselves, like, oh, I should have done it this way, or that wasn't very good, or whatever. But I'm always curious. I like to see the whole thing, but I'm not one to just sit and watch it over and over. The fans, when they tell me they've seen it 20 times or 100 times or whatever, I think that's so cute. But I've never done anything like that. I've watched it a couple times, but it's odd to see yourself, and then especially from something that was so long ago. In fact, yesterday on Turner Classic Films on TV, they showed The Lone Ranger, which is a movie I did, and I hadn't seen that in 100 years. So I watched that, and some of the things it brought back memories, and some of them I was like kind of fuzzy, like I don't remember I was in that scene,
Mm.
that kind of thing.
Because that was the Clayton Moore version, wasn't it? And
Right. Mhm.
Jay Silverheels as
There he is. Yeah.
yeah, and
That was.
Michael Adzar was in that as well, and he's somebody who's been in a lot of TV shows.
Hmm.
And so do you remember those people from Lone Ranger?
Oh yeah, absolutely. By the time I did that show, I think I was like 11 or 12. And so I was just kind of starting to work quite a bit. I was very fortunate to work as much as I did, and that was fun for me working with the Lone Ranger and then working with Superman. Because when I worked with Superman, I was younger. I think I was about 6 or 7, and I didn't know who George Reeves was, but I did know who Superman was.
Right.
So for me,
Yeah.
that was the
Mm.
thrill because I thought I was on this. I thought I was working with a real Superman. So that was fun.
Mm. Was George Reeves nice to work with? Did he kind of meet the expectations of somebody of that is playing a role of that magnitude and
Well,
importance to people?
I'm sorry, something just popped up on the screen. I didn't have my glasses on. Was I supposed to read that?
Oh,
What was that?
oh,
Let
I
me
just had
see.
a question come. Oh, I've
Oh,
just had a question come up. I'll put that
oh,
to you in a minute. Actually, that's a good
oh,
question.
okay. So
Um,
anyway, I'm
uh,
sorry. What?
oh,
No.
yes, I was just saying. You mentioned obviously George Reeves in Superman, but was he quite nice to you? Was he?
He
Yeah.
wasn't in the scene that I was in. If
No.
anybody's familiar with Superman in the Mole Man, I was a little girl. I was in bed, and the Mole Men climb in through the windows, and then I get out of bed, and we start playing with this ball that lights up and everything. So George Reeves was not in that scene, but he was
Right.
on the set. So he
Yes.
was in his Superman costume. So for me, that was the thrill. And then a few months later, I did a show. It was with Edmund Gwenn and Anita Louise and George Reeves. was my father, but he looked completely different. Obviously, he wasn't playing Superman. And so on the set, all the crew were just kidding around with him and calling him Superman. And I was so young because I was about probably 6 or 7. In my young mind, I couldn't compute, like, why were they calling him Superman? So I asked my mother, why were they calling him Superman? And so my mother said, well, he really is Superman, but in the show, he's just play acting to be your father. So that was her. So that
Oh,
was a relief to hear that. So in fact, I talk about that in my book and all the different experiences I had when I worked with various people. Like in The Greatest Show on Earth, I had a scene with Jimmy Stewart, but he was dressed up as a clown
mm,
and I didn't know who Jimmy Stewart was. So for me, it was fun because I was supposed to be under the big top at a circus, and this clown comes up and talks to me and makes me a little balloon and everything. So, and I didn't realize I was being directed by Cecil B. DeMille. It didn't mean anything to me because I didn't know. So it's funny as you get older and you look back and realize and reminisce about things like that. I just feel very fortunate.
I mean, my dad was a big Western fan.
Oh,
Who Shot Liberty Valance was one of his favorites. Of course, Jimmy
oh,
Stewart was in there, and it's probably one of his best his
oh,
best roles. So Jimmy Stewart seemed to be quite nice to work with from
he
your point of
was.
view. Yeah. Well, that's lovely. How did you encounter Phyllis Cootes on Superman? She played Lois Lane. Did you
Pardon me?
Phyllis Cootes was Lois Lane on the
Oh,
Superman. Was
yes.
she was she was she around? Was she around?
Darling woman. Yeah. In fact, we did a series together. It was short lived. It was called Professional Father. And Barbara Billingsley, I don't know, is Leave It to Beaver, is that well known in the UK or no? It was a TV show called Leave It to Beaver.
I'm sure the people
Um,
watching it that will remember that. Yes.
okay, well, Barbara Billingsley played June Cleaver, the mother of the two little boys on Leave It to Beaver. And we had done a series together, and Phyllis Coates um, played my father was supposed to be a child psychologist, and she played his receptionist. So I got to work with her twice, although she also was not in the scene that I was uh, in Superman in the Moment, but she was on the set, so I got to meet her. And then I met her a few times over the years at various conventions, Superman conventions and things, and she was lovely.
Oh, good. That's lovely. I've had a question come in from Rick. Do you remember working on the streets of San Francisco with Michael Douglas?
Yes. Oh, wow. Hi, Rick, is it?
Rick,
Did
yes,
you say
yes.
hi, Rick? Thank you for the question. Yeah, in fact, I had worked with Kirk Douglas in The Juggler when I was 8 years old. And so when I got the role in Streets of San Francisco, I couldn't wait to meet Michael Douglas because by then I was already an adult and I knew who he was and I knew who Kirk Douglas was. When as a child, I didn't know who any of those people that I worked with were. But anyway, so when I met Michael, he was the nicest. He was just so genuine and wonderful. And I did 3 episodes of Streets of San Francisco. So when I first met Michael and they flew me into San Francisco, I lived in Los Angeles at the time, and they flew me there to do the episode. And I couldn't wait to tell him that as a child, when I was 8 years old, that I had worked with his dad in that movie, The Juggler. And he was so dear. He was so kind and just warm and welcoming, as was Carl Malden, who was the other star of that show. So thank you for the question. And I love doing that and being able to have a conversation with Michael Douglas because, when you haven't met somebody, you hope that they're going to be nice. And he was just darling. He was just as nice as he could be.
Oh, yeah, yeah, it's always nice when they do meet your expectations. Of course, Carl was also well known for being in Streetcar Named Desire,
Right.
the Marlon Brando version. So it sounds like he was a nice guy as well. So. That's good to know.
Yeah.
You did do an episode of 77 Sunset Strip. That was Yvonne Craig and Bruce Dern. Do you remember either of those two?
Yeah, that was so long ago. In fact, recently I was at a convention. It was a nostalgic show in Mississippi in the States. And somebody came up and gave me, they had recorded that. They gave me a DVD of Hawaiian Eye, Arrest and Trial, and 77 Sunset Strip. And I hadn't, I mean, that was so long ago. I hadn't even seen those, and I haven't watched it yet. So I'll probably watch it just to be able to reflect on my memories because those shows were so long ago, and I didn't really forget about them, but I don't think about them that much. And so it was nice that somebody brought me a copy of each of them. So I will pretty soon watch those to be able to reflect on my memories.
Oh, that's fantastic. Did you find that when you're watching something that is a very long time ago that is it easier to watch than perhaps stuff that where you did, or does it
Well,
seem like it's another person? Do you recognize?
sometimes it's like watching another person, and I have very little recollection of it. And other times I get emotional. Like, I had not seen Here Comes the Groom in many, many years because as I said, I don't really sit around and watch myself. But I decided to watch this movie because I hadn't seen it in 1,000 years. And there's a scene where I'm in bed with I'm like 7 years old, and Bing Crosby was supposed to have adopted me. And it was a very emotional scene. And he comes in and he sings to me. And it was so weird, Philip, because I was watching it and I started crying because I thought, oh my gosh, that's Bing Crosby, a very famous person, and he was singing to me. And I didn't even know who he was at the time. I didn't appreciate it. It didn't really mean anything to me other than I thought this was a nice man singing to me. So when I saw that, I got a little bit emotional. And then Lou Costello from Abbott and Costello. Are you familiar with Abbott and Costello?
Yep, yep.
Well, Lou Costello, he did an episode of Wagon Train TV show, Western, and it was the only dramatic role that he ever did. And it was a wonderful role for me. I played a child that was a runaway, and he's a drifter, and so we are stowaways on this wagon train, and then there's a murder and everything. And when I watched it, I hadn't seen it in years, and I watched it just recently because it was on a rerun on TV, and it made me cry because he was one of my all-time favorites. He was the nicest man, and he sent me a letter that I actually have on my wall, and it was just so sweet. And he just said he couldn't have done it without me, which is not true. Of course, he could have, but he said that, and it just got me all emotional. And it's just sad that so many people that I've worked with have passed away now. So now I just really hold all my memories close to my heart.
Well, it's all we have in the end, isn't it? Our memories, and
Yeah,
it must be quite lovely as an actor to have, to have the moving memories, to have, to have, you got a, a resource that most people don't have, sort of like a visual kind of journey of your life in some ways, and also a immortality in a way that that people are always going to be watching Star Trek, always going to be watching Young Yella. Is that a nice
yeah.
thought to?
What are your thoughts? Do you think that Star Trek will live on forever, or like for how long? I mean, it'll be
Well,
60 years next year, which is amazing.
yeah, yeah, I do have some questions kind of on that very topic actually. I think it's such a wonderful concept, and when you have something, it's always very difficult for that to ever kind of go away, which is why Star Trek has always been is so gone on for so long, has been cancelled again, but it has always
Right.
come back. You can't kill a good idea. And I think we like the optimism of it. And I suppose when it was made in the 60s, it was kind of a period of change and the Children of the Revolution and flower power and kind of the sense that maybe that things were going to kind of change. And so obviously that's kind of what probably partly what inspired Gene Roddenberry to kind of have this sort of to do this kind of a show. As the decades go on, as particularly these days, things whether that future is further away or closer, I don't. We have more technology, of course, that
Mm,
but does it seem like we will? But we will. Are we going? Is global warming going to get us? Is somebody going to blow us? Blow up nuclear weapons and things like that. So whether or not people have the same optimism of that future, I don't know. But you can't really kill the optimism in people. So I think that is strongly linked to Star Trek. So I would say that regardless of whether we're going to get there or not, it's I suppose that hope and that attempt, and
I hope
maybe
so.
and maybe because of that, Star Trek, can't die because it's linked to the human condition. If that makes sense.
I hope so.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm,
I agree with you. I hope you're right that
mm.
it will live on. And it's so cute when families come and they'll have their little babies and little toddlers dressed up, and they said that they watch it together, and the children are growing up with it. It's a whole different generation still watching it. And I mean, people have their favorites. Some people prefer the other ones, the Deep Space Nine or the Voyager, or everybody has their own favorite. But Star Trek seems to be in so many people's hearts. So many people love Star Trek, and I think it's I think it's wonderful.
As you say, it's something that people pass to different generations, and yeah, I don't think there's anything quite like it really. Even and it's still the same show. The
Hmm.
new stuff is still the same continuity. It's still the same.
Hmm.
So I think it's kind of unique in the respect that's I think there's a British series called Doctor Who that is getting a lot of traction in places like the States, and that's kind of again that's actually the longest running sci-fi show ever because it began 3 years before Star Trek.
Oh
So
wow,
that holds the record of a long, and it's still going with the same continuity, and just as
wonderful.
Star Trek does. So that's an interesting kind of parallel. Um, I did do in my research. I did see that one of your favorite people you worked with was Loretta Young, who of course won the Oscar for The Farmer's Daughter. But what made Loretta so good to work with?
Well, I talk about her in my book quite extensively because she was, well, I don't know, you're a lot younger than I am. Were you familiar with her? Did you know of
I've
her? Or
seen bits and pieces of her work,
yeah,
not
she was
extensively,
an
but
amazing actress. She was very, just wonderful. And she had a show, a TV series, and it was called Letters to Loretta. And it was based on actual letters that fans would write in and um, ask her about certain things, and they would talk about their life and all kinds of different things. So the writers took the letters and they wrote actual stories and put it on TV. And then after a while, they decided to change it over and just call it the Loretta Young Show. And it was an episodic show. It was on weekly, and uh, I did like 3 or 4 episodes playing different roles. And for some reason, she took a liking to me, and I adored her. She was just the sweetest lady. And so years later, when I became an adult, she was doing a series called The New Loretta Young Show, and she played a widow with 7 children. So she actually called me at home and said that she wanted me to play one of her children. And she was just such a kind, loving woman. And for the most part, on a set, everybody has a job to do, and most people let everybody else do their job. But she was very hands on. It was her show, And so she would be in the makeup room watching everybody get their makeup on and kind of tweaking everybody's makeup. She would be when you're in getting your hair done, she would be there checking your hair. She would be in the wardrobe trailer. She would be telling the director kind of how to direct, and it was cute really because she was so involved. And a lot of people, well, they weren't thrilled with that because everybody had a job to do and they wanted to do their job, but she did it in such a kind way. It was just because it was her show and she wanted it just so she would be right there hands on. And at the end of the day they would always show the dailies. Well, back in goes way back years ago. They called them the rushes. I don't know why they call them the rushes. Now they call them the dailies. But anyway, it would be the day's work from before, and you would go in and watch what was filmed the day before. Now they don't do that because everything is digital and they can see it as you're doing it. But back then, you would go in, but the actors typically were never allowed to go in unless they were the main star. Typically, it would be the director, producer, and writer, and they would watch what was filmed the day before. But when we did the New Loretta Young show, she insisted that we would go in, the whole cast, to watch every day because she said you learn from it because you watch yourself and you see what other people are seeing. And she said you learn from it, what you did good, what you did well, or what you shouldn't have done, or what could have been better, or certain things. So she was very hands on, and she would have us over for dinner. And she was just a lovely woman. She was like a second mother, and I was able to stay in touch with her. And sadly, when my husband became ill, he was dying from cancer, and she would call me like every Sunday, or I would call her, and we would talk. And I would go to the mailbox, and there would be a little angel there. Or then one time there was a little crystal dove, and another time a little book on angels, and another time a scarf, and just little gifts that she would say, I was out shopping and I thought of you. And she was just so giving and so lovely. And um, I remember she she invited my husband and me to go visit her, stay in her guest house. And of course, we wanted to, but my husband wasn't doing that well. And it was one of those things where you put things off and you go, well, I can't this week, but maybe next week or the week after or whatever. And so we never went there. And shortly after that, she got ill and she passed away. And it was a lesson for me because I learned that you shouldn't put things off because every day is a gift. And one of the hardest things to live with is regret. You know, woulda, coulda, shoulda. And I mean, she would have gotten ill no matter whether we came or not, and my husband would have passed away whether we went or not. But the point is, we missed that opportunity to be with her and to spend a little time. And it wasn't that we didn't want to go, it was just like, well, maybe next week, you know, you get busy or things come up. And so it was a lesson learned that if something needs to be done or can be done, you should do it and not put it off because we're not promised tomorrow. So anyway, she was one of my all-time favorites. She was like a second mother and very hands-on, very warm, very kind. And I learned a lot from her. I learned just about things in life. Like one of the things she told me is that, am I rambling on too much?
Not at all. Yeah, please keep going.
I tend to start rambling when I reminisce, but um, she said there's a difference in taking and receiving because she said a lot of people are able to give, but they don't know how to receive. And she said, she taught me this lesson. She said when she was a young girl, she was dating this young man, and they got together on this one weekend, and he said, I bought you something. And he bought her this beautiful bracelet. And she said her immediate reaction was, you shouldn't have done that. I can't take it. I can't accept it. It's too expensive. You can't afford that. Why'd you do that? You shouldn't be spending your money. You should be saving your. And she said, in 1 second, his joy and his face, he was so excited to give her this gift. And when she said that and rejected it, his face just changed. And she said she realized then that it would have been so much kinder if she would have said, I love this. It's beautiful and I will cherish it forever. And she said, so there's a difference in taking. You shouldn't like be a giver and expect something in return or take. But if you receive, and she said, you have to be kind in receiving something as well. And that was a lesson that I learned from her because she said there is a difference. And she took away his joy at that moment because she said she could see his expression change and how it meant so much to him to make her happy. And she took that away from him by saying, no, 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 you can't afford it. Why'd you do that? You shouldn't be spending money and all that. So that was just one of the lessons she taught me and something I never forgot.
Oh, yeah, it's very, very, very good advice. Has the business changed a lot in the time of you? Because is it still the same business, or is it kind of sort of
It's a lot
unrecognizable?
different from when I grew up. In some ways better, I suppose. In some ways, maybe not so much. Um, Back in the day, we would have an agent, and they would call you up and tell you that you've got an audition or an interview, and typically they would go on to the set and they'd have their portfolio with all their clients and they would sit down with the casting people and they would go over the roles and they would talk about who might be right for the role and they would submit. Now everything's done online, and so there's that personal thing, meeting somebody and talking. It's different now. Agents can't even do that. Everything has to be done online, and so it's not personal. And people that are still working, a lot of the actors, instead of going in to read, they have to set up a whole thing on their computer and do everything online. So in that respect, it's a lot different. And of course the salaries too. I mean, that's changed. Typically as a child, I would make $250 a week. That was very normal. And I mean, it's all relative because back then things were a lot cheaper, housing and cars and food and everything, but still, that's not very much. Where kids today will literally be making like $1 million a week. And so it's changed a lot like that. And I miss the part that was more personal, where you'd get to go in and meet the casting people, meet the director, meet the writer, and sit down and read for the role as opposed to trying to do it online. So that part I don't like as much, but it's all technology and you can't fight it. It's the way the world is now. So that's just the way it is, but um, quite different from when I was growing up.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've spoken to quite a few actors where they have to send audition tapes in, or or record something like this, and we've not somebody to bounce back
Yeah,
to, so and they
right.
don't like that kind of way of doing things.
Yeah,
It's much more
no, it's different.
difficult. Did you do much theatre work in your career?
No, I never did get into theater. I did some commercials, I did radio, I did a lot of live TV shows, but mainly my thing was just doing film.
Hmm.
So,
And
yeah.
you
So,
said you did an episode of Murder She Wrote. Do you remember
yeah, it
Andrew
was just a
Bradley and
small role. But yeah, I had some really wonderful roles, and then I had some tiny roles. But
hmm,
I've always been just thrilled to do whatever comes along. And I recently did a pilot, and it's called Dusty Bluffs, and it's now finished. So it should be on a streaming. They're talking about. I'm old, so you know me in technology. Streaming, I don't know, but I guess that's the the thing that's popular right now. So they're looking for a streaming channel. It's called Dusty Bluffs, and I play this over the top kind of crazy lady and mother of. There's two young men that are the stars of it. They're like in their 20s, I guess. MP Cunningham and Jared Jackson, and I'm the mother of Jared Jackson, and I'm always yelling at them and always um, not being a very nice mother. It was a really fun role, so I'm hoping that they will sell it to a streaming channel. You can look it up. It's just called Dusty Bluffs, and we filmed it in Utah, and so now they've just completed the editing and all that. So hopefully that will be out soon. So I'm still doing some things here and there. And I recently did a documentary with Sharon Baird, who was one of the original Mouseketeers on the Mickey Mouse Club, and Mimi Gibson, who was Cary Grant's daughter in Houseboat and did a lot of TV and movies. And so it's about the three of us. It's called Here's Looking at You Kids. And it's about our friendship being and working and growing up in Hollywood as child actors. So that should be coming out soon, hopefully. So I'm still doing it and doing conventions and um, just trying to live each day the best we can.
Well, that's all we can do, isn't it? Really. But what inspired you to do your autobiography? Was there a particular reason why it sort of came about
To
that
do
way?
what? I'm
And to do
sorry.
your autobiography, was there a particular reason why you wanted to write it?
Um, well, um, actually, my mother had always wanted to write a book, and she started it. And it was going to be called The Trials and Tribulations of a Hollywood Mother. And she started it, but then sadly she became ill and she got Alzheimer's and she passed away. So then my sister decided that she would pick it up and continue on where my mom left off. And it was going to be from her perspective of being an older sister of a child actress. And it was going to be called Hollywood Child. But then sadly, she got ill and passed away from cancer. And so it just sat there and it was just kind of notes here and there. It was not really a book yet. And it just kind of sat around. And my husband at the time, we stumbled upon the notes and everything that my mother and my sister had written about the book. And he said, "Why don't you write?" And I said, "Oh, I don't, who'd want to know about me?" And he said, "Well, you have a lot of wonderful memories, and I think you should write about it." And so I thought, really? Well, maybe. So I thought about it, but I didn't know where to begin. And I thought, well, I know it was my mother's dream, and then it was my sister's dream. So I thought about it, but I didn't think I could do it. So it just kind of fell by the wayside. And then I was doing a convention, and Kenny Miller, who is an actor, came over, and I was a fan of his. He used to be in all these teenage movies. He was like 10 years older than I was, so we didn't run in the same circles, but I knew who he was. And he came over and he said he wanted to get my picture um, for somebody who was a fan of Superman in the moment. And so somebody came up to my table and he said, well, because he had a table, he was selling photos and stuff. So he said, well, you can bring it over to me. And I said, okay. So when I went over there, I saw that he had a book. And I said, oh, you've got a book? And he says, yeah, do you have a book? And I said, no, I've been kind of thinking about it. My husband thinks I should write it. And he goes, you should. So he said, let me put you in touch with somebody that you can talk to about it. So as it turns out, he said, the guy that I just asked you to sign a photo for is the guy that helped me with my book to find the publisher and all that. So he put me in touch with him, and he told me to send the notes and things that I had written down. It wasn't a book yet. And he said, if I can find a publisher, he said, I'll get back to you. So he said, give me like 6 weeks. Well, the very next day he called me and he said, guess what? Looks like you're going to be writing a book. And so I said, I don't know where to begin. And he said, I just want you to sit down and get in front of your computer and just think back from your the earliest memories of a child, and that's how it came about. And and then a friend of mine came up with the title Real Tears, spelled Reel, because for whatever reason, it seemed in almost every movie or TV show that I did, excuse me, I would have to cry. And people would invariably say, were those real tears or did they put something in your eye? And they were always real. So, and back then, it's different than in today's world, everything's digital, but they had the actual film reels. So my friend came up with the title Real Tears, spelled Reel, um, Real Tears. So it's called Real Tears Take Two, and it's on Amazon. And so it's my story and my life, and the good and the bad, and the happy and the sad, and so it was cathartic to write because there are some things that were sad to write about, but mostly happy. And anyways, that's how it came about.
Well, that's wonderful. And did you always find it easy to cry and as part of a was it easy to find those emotions?
Yeah, well, I've always been emotional. My brother used to tease me. He'd say, "Oh, you cry at supermarket openings," but I would always try to immerse myself in the role and pretend that I was that person. And so, in a scene where there was a crying scene, it would always be, of course, there would be a reason for me to cry. So I would pretend that whatever that reason was, that it was really happening to me and it would just make me cry. It's like people, with the Old Yeller, um, I'm a huge animal lover. I have three rescues at home. And I mean, that, I don't know if you ever saw Old Yeller, but it's one of the
I
saddest
I
movies.
I when of course we knew we were going to be talking, I thought I should watch it. But I like you, I'm such an animal lover. I don't think I could. So
It,
my apologies, but I haven't watched it for that very
That's
reason.
okay.
I
Well,
just
it's a
couldn't bring myself to do
I've
it.
had
But
grown men say I can't watch it. It's too
mm,
sad,
yeah,
and it is a tearjerker. But that dog was a wonderful dog. They got him out of an animal shelter and trained him. His real name was Spike, and he was an amazing dog. And it's a tearjerker. And sadly, I'm the only one still alive from the whole movie, and everybody has passed away. That was, in fact, Tommy Kirk, who obviously people know is the one who has to shoot Old Yeller in the end. Um, he and I were supposed to do an Old Yeller reunion in Hollywood 2 years ago, and sadly, um, he unexpectedly had a heart attack and died. And so I'm the only one left, and obviously you can't do a reunion of one. So we never got to do that. And he lived here in Las Vegas where I live, and we would get together quite often. And he's a wonderful guy, wonderful person, and he loved his fans. And he was gay, and it was well known. And when he passed away, I got inundated with uh, emails. I don't even know how people got my email address, but I was glad that they did. And it was many, there were many people that said that it was because of Tommy that they were able to come out, that they looked up to him and he was like their mentor. And they were sending condolences to me, knowing that we were best friends. And it was very touching. And the sad thing is, I don't think Tommy ever realized how much he was loved because he really was. He really was loved.
yeah,
And
yeah.
Tony
I mean,
Dow also.
yeah.
Tony Dow played Wally Cleaver on Leave It to Beaver, and he wrote the foreword for my book.
Mm.
And he too was one that I don't think he knew how much he was loved. So I think it's always important to let people know that you love them. And I read something, they said, invariably when you go to a memorial, people will come up and say, "Oh, I really loved him," or "I really loved her." And they said, "That's wonderful, but did you ever tell the person? Don't wait to tell the family, and tell the person." And it doesn't have to be sexual, it doesn't have to be romantic. But if you love somebody, tell them. Don't wait till they're gone to tell their family or friends. Oh, he was great. She was sweet. I loved her. I loved him. Tell the person.
Yeah,
So,
yes, it's very important. I mean, I was very grateful that I was very close to my dad, and an only child, so obviously that helped,
yeah,
our
I'm so
closeness. And
sorry.
we were kind of friends, same with my mum. She's still going, and parents, yes, but also friends, and I have a lot of people who um, still have a very much a parent-child relationship
Yeah,
with their parents, and so I think it's quite special. But when you have that dual thing that I've had, I'm always fortunate that I've had such a good relationship with both of them. Um,
yeah, I'm so sorry what you had to go through recently. It's never easy.
well, I think it's me and my dad's. Um, it's my dad. It's because of my dad that I've got in that I'm probably talking to you now in many respects because he got me into films. He recorded one of the Bond films on video of the TV one summer, and I got to Bond. So and they start
Hmm.
to do conventions at Pinewood Studios, a very famous studio
Hmm.
in Slough, and Christopher Lee was there, and Desmond Llewellyn who played Q, and some of the direct. I mean, I was
Oh,
only 11 years old, and going
oh,
back to what you were saying, a bit like if I was, myself now, I would have appreciated even more and asked him lots of
yes.
questions and things. So he kind of started my journey, which has led to us being here. Um, but my penultimate question in terms of other projects you've done, you mentioned Shane. Do you have any recollections of Alan Ladd and Jack Palance?
Well, I was so young, and I played one of the Lewis children, Edgar Buchanan's daughters. So they were basically four of us little girls. And seeing him the first time, he was a bit intimidating to look at because
Hmm.
had that menacing kind of. But he was like a big teddy bear. He was couldn't have been sweeter. So once he came over and gave us all a hug, it was fine from then on.
Oh,
Yeah.
good, good. You mentioned, oh yeah, the Robert Stevenson directed that one. He did Mary Poppins and Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and was he a good director?
I'm sorry, something popped up again on your screen.
Oh,
What
oh,
is?
sorry. We might have had another question come in. I was just wondering about the director of, oh yeah, the Robert Stevenson.
Oh, he was a wonderful, wonderful director and just a kind man. And that was truly like family because we worked for 3 months together. And it was a lovely set, and everybody was just as kind and wonderful as they could be. And at the time, I don't know if you're familiar with the Mickey Mouse Club, but back then they were doing the Mickey Mouse Club. So all the Mouseketeers were having school in a big red trailer. So Tommy Kirk, Kevin Corcoran, and I had school together with them in the big red trailer. And so we became friends, and I'm still close friends with Sharon and some of the other Musketeers. And sadly, Kevin and Tommy have both passed away. But I have some really fond memories. And Robert Stevenson was a delight. He was a wonderful, wonderful director. And Walt Disney would come on the set, but so I got to meet him when I read for the role, and I was so excited to get the part because of being able to work with the dog because I love animals. And but he didn't say a lot. He would come on the set and watch us film a scene and smile and leave. He never told anybody how to do anything. He believed that everybody had a job to do and everybody knew how to do it. So he never interfered or told anybody what to do. He would just come and talk to us, smile, say hello, and then leave. He did that a few times.
And you mentioned you're also well known for horror with the Spider Baby or the Maddest Story Ever Told. Was it as an interesting film to make as the title suggests?
Definitely. That has become a cult classic. In fact, when I was in Italy doing a Star Trek convention last year, somebody, a cute little Italian guy came up and he had the DVD of Spider Baby and asked me to sign it. And it was in Italy. I was shocked. I'm doing a horror convention uh, this August. It's August, I think it's 7th through the 11th, 10th or something in Atlanta, Georgia, in the States, and it's called Monsterama. So they're gonna. It's a whole big thing about Spider Baby, so I'm looking forward to that. It's become like a cult classic, and it was with Lon Chaney Jr. So that was a thrill to work with him. He was wonderful.
And it was Sid Haig was in that as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. He was one of my all-time favorites as well. That was very sad when we lost Sid. He was a terrific guy, and talk about fans. I mean, he had the biggest fan base. I mean, he literally would have people lined up out the door, and he just loved his fans. He was so fan friendly, and he wouldn't just sign a photo and go to the next person. He would literally talk to each person and make them feel special. And I mean, that's how it should be. And he did that, and he was definitely a fan favorite and so much fun. I did two movies with him. I did Spider Baby and also Pit Stop. They were both Jack Hill films. And Jack Hill will be there this time. He's now in his 90s and he doesn't typically travel anymore, but he happens to live in Atlanta, so he's able to be there. So I can't wait to see him because it's been many years since I've seen him.
Mm. And you did the remake of the film that
Yeah,
came out with,
did that too. Yeah, Jack was the producer of that. So we got to speak on the phone and emailed and everything, but I haven't seen him in person in years. So I can't wait to see him. But yeah, it was a remake by Dustin Ferguson, and it's out on DVD. But I mean, it was a fun thing to do. I just did a little cameo in it, and they were kind enough to give me starring billing, which I'm only on the screen 30 seconds, so I don't know why they did that, but that was very nice of them. But it was fun. And then Ron Chaney is also in it. That's Lon Chaney's grandson. They wrote in a little cameo for him too. So we had fun on the set.
oh, that's wonderful. So just to wrap everything up, uh, t just looking at the Star Trek episode as a whole, we said it's a classic episode.
Thank
Are
you.
there other bits of the episode? Do you have a favorite moment or moments from the episode? Maybe your scenes, but also maybe other things that you kind of remember from the episode.
I can't think of anything in particular. I mean, just being there on this set, it was a fun set and an interesting set to be on, like we were on a space thing. I had never done anything quite like that. So that was fun. And just meeting the cast, they were all wonderful and welcoming. And um, I had a great time. Um, Typically, they do the show like in 5 days, and I was there like 3 days. So, because I wasn't in a lot of scenes, so I didn't have to be there every day. So, but just looking back, I just feel fortunate to have been a part of Star Trek because I had no idea in a million years that all these years later it would still be going and people would embrace it and love it. And um, lucky me to have been a part of it. I'm so grateful.
And it's been such a big part of your life. It seems to be with
Absolutely.
conventions and fans and something
Yeah.
that you very much embrace.
Yeah. Thank you. I know I love meeting the fans, and it always touches me and means so much to me when they remember not only the episode, but they remember me because it wasn't a large role, but it was a fun role.
Hmm.
And so I hope that it will continue to go on for a long time.
I think it will. I think Gene Roddenberry always said that they were morality plays set in space, and it was covering issues of the
Mhm.
moment in a science fiction way that perhaps would get past the censors and wouldn't get kind of edited, and of course, having Nichelle Nichols, a woman of color
Lovely lady.
on a position of command, and having somebody that
Mhm.
was Japanese and Russian and
I know, it's
that
great.
kind of inclusivity.
Mhm.
And I think it's
Absolutely.
amazing how many people were inspired by who went into engineering because of Scotty, or so it's interesting the power that drama has, isn't it, in terms of how it can shape people's lives, but also
Isn't it?
break down
Yeah,
barriers, perceptions, etc.
absolutely.
Um,
But,
and
this has been so much fun, Philip. Thank you for reaching out to me and finding me to do this because It's always a joy to reminisce. Sometimes I ramble on too much because I feel so fortunate and blessed to have the memories that I do. And so to be able to talk about them and share them with people and you and all that, it means a lot to me. So thank you so much for making this happen and helping me with um, with this technology because I'm old, so I'm not so good on the computer. So thank you for making this happen. I've enjoyed it so much. And thank
Oh,
you
thank you.
to whoever's watching out there, the fans, and for being a fan of Star Trek. And thank you so much for listening or watching, or if anybody's out there, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think because this goes on my YouTube channel later, so people will sort of to discover it, and it's I
Okay,
think it's gonna be quite a popular one. I did have
thank
a
you.
little comment from Rick. Just I think it might be just a nice one to read out. He just says thank you so much to Beverly. You're genuinely my favorite Star Trek guest star.
Oh,
So it's been wonderful to see her looking so well and hearing her memories. Her voice hasn't changed at all. Thanks so much and hope the residuals keep coming.
thank you. That's so sweet. Now I'm going to get all emotional. Thank you. Those words touched my heart. Thank you so much for saying all that. And thanks for reading that.
No, my pleasure. And it's been lovely to speak to you. I'm sorry it took so long coming, but it's been well worth the wait
Thank
and
you.
really nice to meet you
Thank you.
and to chat about so many wonderful things today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And everybody stay safe and well. And God bless you. And thanks for making this happen. And please stay in touch, Philip.
Well, I will, and I wish you well with your upcoming projects. It all sounds very interesting. So yeah,
Thank you.
keep going, keep well,
Okay.
and we'll yeah, and we'll yeah, say we keep in touch.
Thank you so much. Have a blessed day.
You too. Take
Bye,
care.
everybody.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye, Beverly.
Bye.